Hey YouTube, and welcome to the master guide on how to loot faster in Fortnite. A lot of players underestimate how important being able to loot quickly is. Almost every Fortnite guide here on YouTube addresses how to get better at fighting, and while fighting is undeniably an important part of the game, most of your time playing isn't spent in fights. It's spent looting and moving around the map. That's why today we're going to address how to efficiently loot, allowing you to get better gear and give yourself an advantage before the fighting even starts. This is going to be broken down into 3 parts, and we're going to try to get through each one as quick as possible. We'll go over where to drop to loot quickly, how to loot a location for gear quickly, and how to gather materials quickly, with time markers in the description if you want to jump between these categories at any point in the video. Just as one quick final disclaimer though, this video is not about how to land first, it's about how to loot the quickest once you have landed, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so without further wait, let's get right into it. To start off, we are going to run through where to drop if you want to loot quickly. Not every location offers the same amount of loot, but even more importantly for this video, not every location offers the same amount of loot within the same amount of space. It should make sense that having a lot of loot in one house is better than having a lot of loot spread out evenly among 5 different houses, because it takes longer to gather if the loot is spread out. This is one reason why I tell people to not drop Pleasant Park. This is because Pleasant Park, although it has a lot of loot, has the loot spread out among such a wide space, which means you can't loot it all very quickly. Since the focus of this video is how to loot quickly, where your drop is positioned on the island can also matter. Certain locations are very isolated, so even if you get the whole town to yourself, it can be hard to continue into another town to find more loot or to find other players and get what they have looted. That's why I would recommend dropping places that have nearby rifts or other items that will help you get around the map, such as an ATK. With all the new additional drop locations being added each update, you can worry less and less about the amount of people at certain places, and more about the amount of loot those places have. But still know that if you drop somewhere with 10 players, like Tilted Towers, you'll end up with less loot than if you drop to that same location, but by yourself. You should keep these things in mind when creating your own list of locations you enjoy dropping that have a high amount of loot compared to the size of the location. For me, my favorite locations that meet these criteria are the factories next to Flush, near the south end of the map, and then also Viking Village. But there are tons of viable locations to drop, and favorite drop locations will vary from person to person, so as long as you keep these guidelines in mind, you should be alright. Okay, now on to how to loot a location quickly. First off, in order to loot a location quickly, you have to know the chest spawn locations and where loot can appear in that area. The best way to get familiar with where chests can spawn in a certain location is by queuing into a playground game 2 or 3 times and paying close attention to where the loot appears in the town. In some towns, there are also somewhat secret spots in basements or in other hidden locations that you might want to look up online and try to find out if you aren't familiar with them yet. Once you know where the loot can spawn, you have to pick a route to loot, and I would recommend taking the same looting route every time you drop somewhere. That way the chest spawn locations become natural and you understand the layout of the buildings very well. In addition, you need to understand the most efficient way to move between building to building, so make sure the spot you land initially enables you to move around the town to other buildings nearby and is not isolated from the rest of the area. It's also important to remember moving from building to building can look different depending on where you drop. In some drop spots, it will make sense to break down walls from one building to get into the next, instead of running around and using doors. In other towns, it might be quicker to go from roof to roof. In some towns, certain buildings are a waste of time to loot, because odds are chests won't spawn there. So really take the time to understand where you're dropping before you go there. Something else that you want to make sure to do, to avoid dying right away, is to initially drop into a house that has multiple chests or item spawns, because oftentimes the gun you get right off the bat will have to be used to win 1 or 2 early game fights. So it's best to give yourself a good amount of chances to roll a good gun, instead of relying on a single chest to give you enough gear to win that first fight. One other thing you need to have down in your head before you even begin the looting process is what you are actually looking for. Try to make a list of the items you want in your inventory, that way as you are looting you aren't wasting time trying to decide what to pick up and what to leave. For me, I know I want a shotgun, SMG, AR, and then at least 1 or 2 med slots or a 4th utility item. If you like different weapons than me, that's totally fine. Just make sure that you know what you want so that you don't waste key time during the game trying to decide what to pick up. Now that all the strategy and planning aspects of looting quickly have been discussed, I'd like to quickly give a few tips to help shave off a few seconds on your total looting time. The first quick tip is that you can perform actions like picking up ammo while drinking shields, and you can organize your inventory while drinking shields as well. So try to avoid just shielding while not doing anything else. The next tip is to always have your pickaxe out when looting, and picking up loot, as you have probably seen pro players doing. This is because when your pickaxe is out, you auto pick up mats and ammo around you so long that there is space in your inventory. Having your pickaxe out also means you can quickly break down a wall to get from location to location faster if need be. There are also in-game settings that you can use to help you loot faster. Specifically, there's one setting that I think most people are unaware of, but in my opinion you should definitely have on, and it is located in the Game Settings tab. The setting is near the bottom of the page, and what it does is it will auto-sort all the med items you pick up to the right side of your inventory. Since most people keep their guns in the first few spots of the inventory, turning the setting on can save you that little bit of time and hassle you would otherwise need to spend reorganizing your inventory. Okay, now on to the final part of the video, gathering materials quickly. Gathering materials quickly comes as a product of the first two topics I discussed, where you drop and how you go about looting a location. Certain locations aren't going to provide you with much resources, or if they do, you'll have to go out of your way to go get them. This is why I wasn't telling you the full story earlier when you were picking where to drop and your looting route. The location you drop has to have resources, but even more importantly, to the efficiency of your looting, the route you take once you're in the town has to have resources as well. You don't want to be going out of your way to grab resources, so ideally as you move from building to building, you'll be gathering resources on the way. This means knocking down trees, rocks, and other natural structures as you go from house to house, but it can also mean hitting the furniture inside the houses you drop into. One quick trick you should use in order to break down furniture and other objects that don't take as many hits to break is jumping while you swing your pickaxe and then quickly swapping back to a weapon before you land in order to avoid losing forward momentum in whatever direction you're traveling. Additionally, to increase the amount of materials you leave your first drop spot with, you want to spend as little materials getting around whilst looting as possible. This means you'll have to take advantage of editing, ramps especially, in order to spend your materials efficiently while moving around and looting. As long as you are picking your drop spot and routes wisely, and you spend the first few minutes looting efficiently, you'll be better prepared every game than the rest of the people in your lobby, which might be the small edge you need to make it further into your games and give yourself a better shot at winning. Okay, we've made it to the end of the video. Like I said earlier, if you need to go back to review any specific part of the video, there are timestamps in the description. As always, if you did find this video helpful, please do leave a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to leave any comments as well if you need help or have any feedback, and I'll see you in the next one.